well, welcome everyone to our Q1 product roadmap webinar. I'm so excited to cover all the amazing features that we have planned coming out your way. My name is Chase, I'm a principal strategist here at JumpCloud, and I'm joined today with 4 amazing speakers that will be covering each section of the JumpCloud platform and kind of what we have in store for you. A quick agenda, we'll be taking a snapshot look at JumpCloud. So just like the favorite new season of the show coming out, we'll be doing a little teaser trailer of all this great stuff that we had. And we'll be spending the bulk of the webinar covering all the Q1 features that we're looking at across the platform. And then my favorite part, which is the feedback Q&A, hearing directly from all of our customers, partners, and folks that are playing with the platform. A quick disclaimer. So this is a roadmap software presentation, right? And so just like life is subject to change, but if you have any and all questions around where things are at, please feel free to reach out to us or your CSM. We're always love to have those conversations. We have them daily and love to have you be a part of them. So taking a quick snapshot of JumpCloud, and so for those that have been with JumpCloud for a while or just recently joined the JumpCloud family, just a little baseline of kind of where we are. So we have over 150,000 active organizations that are leveraging it today across the globe, across 160 different countries, which is great. We did raise a fair bit of money last year, and we're actually putting that right to work and kind of executing on all the plans that you'll see coming at you today. And we're doing that across a great team, and it's continuing to grow. I think one of my favorite pieces is all the G2 crowd reviews. You know, as much as we love to have all the different pieces of analyst relations, it's always amazing to hear directly from our customers and kind of how you're using it daily. So thank you so much for your inputs and reviews there. And so looking back, kind of looking at 2021, I think we can all agree that, you know, 2020, it was a year, right? I think we had more expectations for what it was, but it was an amazing year for JumpCloud product. We had over 115 customer-facing releases that hit, and there's even more under the covers that all made it all happen, and as well as some notable ones. So we had JumpCloud Protect, so push MFA across all the features and platform that you can leverage, and we'll be covering more around how we're expanding that coverage, as well as key identity releases, thinking about user suspension and scheduling, and then also device releases, so 0-day support for major releases, as well as zero touch for Apple MDM, making sure that we can drop ship wherever that's needed. Continuing to work on the directory and focusing in on the SCIM protocol so you can manage those identities in and out wherever they might be, as well as the multi-tenant portal for our partners so that way you continue to operate and run a business on top of JumpCloud. And then like everything else I just described, we're kicking off loads of data as that's coming through. And so making sure that we can put that in a contextual aware and making sure that's put to use, right where you need, and understanding what users are up to, as well as all the devices within your fleet. So for today, in our roadmap, we're actually going to take a little bit of a road trip. And so we'll be visiting each one of our speakers here. And for those that are lucky enough to be in the Denver metro area, you might actually see a JumpCloud bus driving around as we start this journey. And so to start that journey, we're actually going to take a trip up north, and we'll be visiting Scott as we visit there. And so Scott, I will actually hand the ball over to you. And if you could just do a quick background kind of introduction on yourself, and then we can take it from there.
Yeah, hey everyone. So I'm Scott. I lead engineering here at JumpCloud. Been here a couple months now, so relatively new. Came from Splunk most recently, but also spent quite a bit of time at Twitter previously leading infrastructure for them. And so I'm gonna run down a little bit what's going on with the platform availability effort. So just quick recap, back in November, we hosted a webinar talking about some of the scale challenges we were running into and what we're going to do about it. And we laid out these 2 initial outcomes. One was protect the customer experience, and the other was to be transparent and visible. So I wanted to give everybody here just a quick update on what's been going on there. So first, we called a code red effort, which really means making sure that the entire organization, not just engineering, is focused on this new, urgent, fairly narrowly focused effort, and that we would have all the resources we needed to actually go and accomplish that. Why did we do that? Well, it's pretty obvious that we don't have any features without stability. That's one of the most important features we can provide, and you know, we've very much recognized that when we're down, you're down, and that's super important. The larger scale we've achieved requires a more urgent new approach than one we've had in the past, and not the least of which the organization also has to scale. It's not just a technical problem. We called this effort Operation Mercury Viper internally, which is where the fancy logo comes from. One of the team members came up with that, and it eventually made its way onto a t-shirt, so that's how we know it's real. So how did we approach this? So we talked about the external focused outcomes. And then there was these 4 kind of key themes that we used internally when we talked about this with engineering. The first one was to measure and protect the customer experience. Next, optimize and isolate key customer-facing services. Critically establish patterns of future success, because this isn't a one-time thing. This has to be ingrained in the culture going forward. And then lastly, be visible, same as the external version of that. We have exec level visibility on this. This is reviewed weekly, if not more frequently than that, to make sure we're making the right progress. It's clearly defined as the top, but importantly, not the only priority for all of the teams. We are still delivering features. You've probably seen a lot of those features come out, and we're going to be talking about a lot of those great features coming out this quarter. But it is the most important thing that we're working on. So when we need to pull in resources to work on this, we do. And then finally, engaging with all the partner teams, like our product partners here, to make sure that everything is visible and we're all aligned on the impacts of making any of these changes. So we cut this into 3 phases. The first one was immediate stabilization, which is complete at this point. Second one, which is the phase we're in now, is some medium-term scalability. And then finally, long-term re-architecture work. And what this really means is the first phase was all about, we needed to stop the bleeding, give us some headroom, reduce the incident load, just build us some of that runway so that we could do some of the harder stuff. And we believe we're at a point now where we can support both the current load that we have plus several months of additional growth that we're expecting in the business. So that's great. Give us that room to do more of these things. This meant more customer experience metrics, more alerts on experience degradation, clarified ownership and accountability, so it's much faster to get to resolution. We introduced a new change management process for big changes, which include pre-checks, post-checks, consistent dashboards. We introduced rate limits to make sure that we can prevent noisy neighbors, which was a problem that we were starting to see. And then finally, we relieved some of the load on ourselves by reducing request patterns or changing request patterns on the devices side without causing any customer impact there. So where we are right now, we need to build even more runway to get to the longer term efforts. The longer term work is measured in a couple of years. So we want to make sure that we have enough room to do all that without causing any new problems later. And this really comes down to a couple things. The first one is separating the workloads. So not only pulling work out so we prevent our own internal noisy neighbors, but also giving ourselves the flexibility to use optimized technology for different workloads in a different way than we've been able to do in the past. This plan was created late last year. Execution is in progress. We are being really cautious though. This is potentially very disruptive work because we're changing a lot of internal patterns. So we want to make sure we do that in a way that doesn't impact customers. And so it's taking a little bit longer to do this, but fortunately we built that headroom to do it. There's been a bunch of data layer upgrades. If you subscribe to the status updates, you've probably seen a bunch of these alerts come through where we're doing some maintenances, making sure that we keep things up to date and improving the scale of those components. And then finally, normalizing process and procedures, making sure that when we do have an incident, that individuals who are fighting that fire don't have to think about where to go find information, don't have to think about which dashboards, it's all available in the same spot. Coming up, continued workload separation. The goal here is that only customer reads are in the critical path so that there aren't any noisy neighbors for anything else. More stuff in more regions is a thing we talked about way back in November as well. We have a multi-region strategy. We need to continue to invest in that and make it bigger. More advanced system protection. So I mentioned rate limits, that's a hammer. We want to have better protection such as back off and back pressure and circuit breakers, more things that provide a degraded experience rather than a harsh experience. Freer tech stack strategy, I mentioned that. Whatever we come up with probably won't be exactly right, but we do want to make sure we have that North Star that drives a lot of our decisions and we're designing with intent going forward. Service maturity model so that individual owners internally know what good is for running a service and they know how to measure themselves against that. Incident command, we made a huge amount of improvements over here, but there's still more room to grow on this. And then finally, obviously continuing to improve that overall availability metric, that top line metric that defines how good we're doing. So I also mentioned pattern for future success, super important that we're investing not just in the today thing, but a thing that's going to set us up for future success because reliability, security, availability, these are all cultural things. They're not one-time things. So we've done a bunch of stuff in just aligning all the incentives in the right place. all up planning, making sure that reliability is the same level as features, mention maturity model, standard processes, entry points, all these kinds of things that large organizations need to make sure there's consistency, and we ingrain this into the culture. And of course, being visible, we've been recording, or I've personally been recording weekly update messages that have gone out on everything that we're doing. Clarifying ownership internally is super important. And then finally, that the internal visibility of feedback to the rest of the team, how this is impacting all of the other priorities on the roadmaps. So just a few quick wins. Higher velocity product to customer comms, hopefully you've seen that. Customer experience metrics and coverage improvement by 1,000+%. We've 10x'd at least the number of metrics we're watching on the outside to notice degradations before all of you do. Reduced time to incident detection, reduced incident frequency. The data layer upgrade that happened in December had no customer impact. The one that happened a couple weeks ago had exactly the expected customer impact, so improving our processes there. System load we talked about. And then finally, and super important, establishing a reliability org so that we have this long-term investment in site-wide health. There's a team that is on the hook and accountable to making sure that the site is up and available all the time. All right, and I think up next is Eric.
Okay. Let me see if I can actually show my screen.
Yes, so continuing the road trip, and on down to Texas.
Go ahead, Chase.
Oh, just if you can give a quick background and dive in.
Sure. Hey, I'm Eric Avigdor. Very difficult last name, don't try. I'm down in Austin. I run the Identity and Access Management product management team within JumpCloud. I've been 2 months at JumpCloud and I love it. So let's get going. I'm going to tell you a little bit about our IAM focus in Q1, and I'll give you a small glimpse into what we're planning in Q2 and remainder of the year. So I think back to some of the things that Scott mentioned as well. We're focused on more during Q1, and for me, at least in Identity and Access Management, we'll be focusing on more of the existing in Q1 and then going beyond that in Q2 and Q3 and Q4. When I say more, what I actually mean in Identity and Access is really more identities from more sources, more single sign-on, extending single sign-on to more environments to provide a better user experience. Much more automation. I'll show you in a few minutes what that means, and more authentication to keep our customers more secure. And when I'm saying more, I'll also say a little bit less on friction. So lowering the friction on auth and making it frictionless. We are combining, and this is the kind of initial steps of combining identity management with access management and authentication. We'll get to why that's important in a few seconds. So in identity management, or what we used to dub Cloud Directory, we are rotating around 3 themes, and you'll keep hearing about these 3 themes throughout the year. Automating identity lifecycle, so that has everything to do with onboarding, offboarding workflows, keeping everything automated, clean, and quick. Extending single sign-on, which means a few different things, but the end result is allowing your end users to have an easy access experience to many different environments and keeping that easy and clean as well. And governing access, which in my world, what that means is really centralizing, automating everything that has to do with authorization, with requests and grants. So let's talk a little bit about what that actually means in Q1. So when we think about how we integrate with Google and with Azure AD, we would like to sync more attributes. We would like to bring more attributes into JumpCloud and bring more attributes from JumpCloud into Azure AD and Google in order for, on our end, to be able to inform group membership. Once those attributes change, we can actually take group membership decision based on them. We are now allowing also, in addition to the additional attributes, also to set a direction for the sync, whether it's import or export or exclude that specific attribute. HRIS. So let's think about that risk for a moment here. A company grows. Let's say a company has access management deployed or authentication capabilities deployed, any access technology, and grows to the point where it needs to deploy an HRIS system to manage HR processes. If HR is disconnected from IT, there's a risk there. The risk is that manual creation of identities within the IT environment once a new user is onboarded. We want to automate and simplify that. We want to make it easy and simple for HR to set up a group of 20 or 200 new employees, and that would automatically flow into your IT systems, into your JumpCloud environment to automate onboarding and provisioning, streamlining HR and IT processes. Another streamline activity we're doing is on the onboarding and offboarding of new users. We created a new state, a new user state called staged. This is for the situation where you have a group of 50 new employees starting on March 1st. You don't want to wait for the last minute in order to prepare all of their provisioning and access permissions, and you want to prepare that beforehand and activate that on the day that they join. You will now be able to create users in that stage state. You can filter them by that stage state, and on day 1 or day 0, you hit activate, and permissions are granted and access is granted to users immediately. You will see in a few moments that we are planning to automate that further down the year, where that entire process can be scheduled and automated. As always, we focus on extending single sign-on to more environments based on our research, based on customer requests. We've added SAML templates for CrowdStrike and Bob and Palo Alto and Just Call and many, many more that are not on this slide. We will keep doing that, so keep asking for it. We love it. Powerful group suggestions. One of the things that becomes difficult is remembering to update a user in a specific group in order for access to be granted to specific applications that apply to that group. So one of the things we're doing is we're actually making those suggestions smarter, and we're actually now at the point where we can provide some dynamic updates to the suggestions themselves based on changes that happen on the user itself. So if a user attribute changes based on a sync activity or any other change, that will inform the suggestions that will come back to you to suggest which groups to put that user in. Once again, down the year, we're planning on fully automating that to the point where potentially some of those group suggestions will become an automatic activation and not a suggestion. We're continuing the down the road on admin and sudo permissions. At this point, we would like to be a bit more granular and actually to take the sudo permissions down from the user group level down to the device level. So if a user, let's say, is part of the engineering group, you may not want to provide sudo permissions to every single one on the engineering group. However, you may want to do that only for those on a Windows device, for example. So now you have the ability to go more granular. As I said, the theme is more, so more granular in this case. Let's talk about the advancements we're making on access management and authentication before we move on to the beyond Q1 portion. So just as we did in directory and identity management, on the access management and authentication theme, we're really rotating around 3 pillars. Becoming more frictionless. We know we've seen this both at the large enterprise, small to medium business, and at the mid-market level. The more authentication and security is frictionless, the more it is adopted, and the higher there's an increase in security stance within the company. So we want to make authentication frictionless. Zero trust is a very long journey, which has many wrong perceptions around. We want to help our customers move into the cloud safely with an always verify approach. Initially by adding conditional access, but down the road there will be much more to come. We'll share that in a moment. And we are actually starting a journey also on adding certificate-based authentication capabilities. This is not going to be released in Q1, but I'll tell you a little bit about that further on. One of the first things that we realized we have to add in kind of quick early on in the year is the ability to view the MFA enrollment state of a user. Whether a user has already enrolled with multi-factor authentication or not, you absolutely do not want to switch on a conditional access policy that says sales has access to Salesforce only when authenticating with multi-factor, and oh, by the way, 50 salespeople do not have multi-factor enrolled. So this will allow you to actually filter, check the user state, whether he's enrolled or not, and based on that, nudge the user to quickly enroll before an access policy may be activated. User self-service password. So If you think about self-service password reset, if you only have your corporate account, your email corporate account, and that is what you base your password reset on, if you are locked out of your account and you try to access your corporate email for that password reset activity, you may actually find yourself in an inconvenient situation. So we've added the ability to add a recovery email. That recovery email must be validated, obviously, before it's activated. And once it is, you could reset your password with that recovery email. Two-factor authentication is required to verify your identity before that is actually allowed. And as part of our plan to deploy multi-factor authentication everywhere for any resource, we're adding now push authentication for Radius environments. What that means is if you've integrated your VPN access or your Wi-Fi access through Radius, you'd now be able to allow your user this kind of easy, simple user experience, push experience, where I'm logging onto my VPN, I hit push, and I'm in for good, or at least for the length of the session, I should say. So let me give you a quick glimpse of Q2 and beyond. Once again, this is not going to happen in Q1, but just a little bit of forward-looking vision. We want to really deepen that synergy between identity management, access management, and authentication. We know that when you leverage the synergies of all of these three pillars, you can actually get a profound impact on the security posture of a company. We want to provide a very powerful IAM service for the SMBs and SMEs, which on the one hand is effortless to deploy, but also, and this is for me a very big focus for us in the coming future, helps you grow from a small to medium business, from a 100 or 200 employee company to the point where you exponentially grow to the 500, 1,000, and 5,000 employee company. And the focus becomes really on when you get to that point where you need HRIS systems, or you need privileged access management environments, or you need threat intelligence through SIEM environments. We want to make that easy for you to grow and deploy these environments and still maintain a single strong source of truth that will allow you single sign-on into all of these environments and much more. A few small key topics on what's coming next on those themes, and you'll hear much more on our next Q2 webinar. So managing more identities through REST APIs, we're building that. We're automating user activation. I mentioned this earlier for scheduled onboarding. We're extending single sign-on beyond SAML to support OpenID Connect, which is extremely important for certain web application environments. We're automating group membership. We will be allowing to delegate that as well to resource owners. And yes, we will be adding biometrics to mobile some point later on in the year with JumpCloud Protect, allowing you to log on with biometric features. And last but not least, once again, completing the journey of deploying multi-factor everywhere, we're adding that into the LDAP protected resources as well. And this is where your journey in Austin ends, and I think you're on the way to the West Coast right now.
Chase, are you going to? Thank you, sir.
Indeed, indeed. So bus trip, take along, head up to the sunny shores, which I am jealous of because it is currently a blizzard here in Colorado. So Greg, if you could take us on.
I'm happy to. Thanks, Eric. Well done, sir, and welcome to the team. Excited to have you here. So I am Greg Armanini. I lead devices product management here at JumpCloud. I've been at the company about 4 months now, and most recently joined from VMware, which is a large player in the UEM space. So excited to be here and to tell you about what's coming up here in the Q1, Q2 timeframe. And as Chase mentioned, I am in sunny California. I'm in the Bay Area. It is nice today, but with any luck, I will get outside, so we'll see. All right, here we go. So as many of you know, we think about JumpCloud primarily as a platform for directories, but it's really a lot more than that. I just wanted to let folks know that what we're really doing in device land is we're creating a management platform that ties in sort of intrinsically with identity and the data platform within our directories. But it also is evolving into a full-fledged UEM platform. So the mission for the devices team at JumpCloud is manage all of the OSs and manage the complete life cycle for the user and their devices. So that plays directly into the themes for this year, namely 3 key objectives. So 1, mature our desktop solution. We already have Windows, Mac, and Linux support today. You should expect to see this year that we're going to be focusing more on improving the experience. So customer found issues, going deeper on management configurations, making what we already do really well even better. Then there's going to be a foray into mobility. So you've probably already noticed, I hope, that we launched iOS at the end of last year. And today we do management of COD and BYOD devices, and we'll be extending that, and of course, we'll be ultimately getting to Android as well. So expect to see a solution around mobility in 2022. And we'll be talking about specifics here in Q1, Q2 that we're really excited about. And then lastly, one of the key themes, and Eric already started to touch on it, is automation. And bringing greater security to your deployments. And so we're spending a lot of effort here, and it's really an innovation story, bringing new capabilities, making your jobs easier, helping you orchestrate things. So much more to talk about that's exciting. And I'll touch on that actually straight away. So without further ado, let us talk about some things that are happening here in Q1, Q2. So first up is on the innovation side, so patch management. We are just on the cusp of releasing a new feature that's a whole work stream around OS patch and compliance. It's something that's really exciting in part because what it's going to get you is more of a automation or an easy button around things that you would have to manually configure today. So today, for instance, it is possible to apply an update policy, but you have to know how to do it and when to do it. What we're now going to allow you to do is just click a go button, and we're going to automate the whole process for you. So that's what's happening, and that's something we're really excited about. What's in it? So first and foremost, as you saw in the mock-up, we have a new fleet homepage that's going to give you a readout of all of the Windows and Mac devices in your fleet and their patch levels. We are adding a brand new dedicated policies tab for OS patch, and I'll show you a screenshot example in a second. And then, of course, we're adding notifications for the end user. And this is going to be not just on Windows, but on Mac as well. So really having a complete end-to-end patch management experience that's going to allow you to extend what's there today in a really amazing way. So here's an example. These are the policies. When you click, I want to use patch management, you're going to see some defaulted policies. So rather than going in and having to set them up yourselves today, we're doing it for you. And we're going to take a ring-based approach where we'll have, for instance, Vanguard, we'll have early adopters, and then general and late adopters, and then you can determine default upgrade cycles. And ultimately, you can come in and configure it in advanced ways to change the timelines, but you don't have to if you don't want to. The real idea here is it's fire and forget. We're going to take care of making sure that your fleet is up to date, which is hopefully going to save you a lot of time. So here's an example of those user notifications. So on Mac OS, we're using Nudge. So that gives us a lot of capabilities to ultimately push the user further along and faster along than what you could with just what's there today on Mac OS. And then Windows, of course, is going to continue to use Action Center notifications. And we're hoping that this is going to be something that really changes the game for you ultimately. So after the initial release, we're going to be doing more refinements. We expect to add patch for Ubuntu. So look, going into Linux. So we're starting in Ubuntu. We'll be adding more OSs over time. The idea here is that we're going to cover all of the critical mass of desktop with patching compliance over time. So be looking for continual updates from our patch team on this topic. So moving over to what's happening on Windows and Linux, there's several things that are pretty exciting. One thing I wanted to talk about is what we're doing on Windows for compatibility. So many of you know today when you install the JumpCloud agent on Windows or really any machine, it's got to be JumpCloud joined. Traditionally, we haven't allowed the agent to run on an AD joined or Azure AD joined machine, and that's changing. The vision is to make sure that you can install the agent on any machine. Today, we do support AD. We're about ready to release support for Azure AD, and really what I mean by that, if you look at this graphic, is we want to allow it to run and do basic telemetry. So what you're going to be able to do coming out of Q1 is install it. You'll see in the JumpCloud console that it's there and reporting in. Now, you will, in the same release, be able to issue commands to those devices now, which is, of course, a great way to do basic compliance, like sending down a script or something to manage the device. In the future, there's more we can do. And so I want to be super clear that it's a journey. We will be, for instance, working on the authentication side, taking over the local accounts for Azure and Azure AD joined machines, if that's what you want. And then down the line, doing more policy work. So a few details. I'm going to scan this real quick to see if there's anything I missed. I do think I covered most of it. This is something that I think is going to be very exciting. Again, this is going to give you more flexibility in terms of your deployment choices. We're starting to hear from more and more customers who are joining us maybe from AD and they're not ready to do a wholesale migration. Really what this allows you to do is to toe in the water. You can run JumpCloud without having to go through that full migration and start to get some value out of our platform on top of what you're already doing in your legacy methodologies. Next up, so this is again in the theme of compatibility and flexibility. So we are adding the capability for Windows to have an MSI installer in addition to an EXE. And the reason why that's important is this unlocks a lot of new use cases. Primarily, this is going to make it so that it's easier for you to silently configure this on an end user's machine. So today, as you know, we need that connect key. Here with an MSI, you can effectively use an existing third-party deployment methodology to push the agent. You also can push it with a command or user information to install silently and provide it the connect key. So this is a step along the way of the journey of making the JumpCloud agent very easy to install. You should expect us to see over time changes where we make, on any desktop OS, the agent to be much more user-friendly, to eliminate the need for the connect key overall, which is a work in progress that you should see in 2022. Another important usability and deployment flexibility topic is internationalization. So we know our customer base, as you saw from Chase's slides earlier in the presentation, is growing rapidly outside of the States. And we're seeing a lot of new languages coming into the fold. One of the things we're doing across our product suite is making sure that it's fully internationalized, meaning if you're running a different locale on your local machine, we want to make sure that our product, works flawlessly. In this case, we've seen some issues reported where, depending on the language locale selected on a Windows machine, we found that the localization could impact the way the commands were run for BitLocker encryption settings. What we've effectively done is we've taken that out of the mix. So now, coming out of Q1, you'll be able to run, machine maybe with a Chinese language preference locally, and the BitLocker commands will work as expected. So this is more of a usability customer found issue, but it's a big deal as a lot of our customers have been asking us for the ability to have sort of global deployments. More on the blocking and tackling side. So we continue to make really great progress on Linux. Linux is a cornerstone of what we do, and we care deeply about it as an OS. We are continuing to add each quarter more distros. So what you should expect is to see each quarter something coming along. Here in Q1, we're expecting to have 3. We've already released Fedora 35. Amazon Linux, it's in preview. That's something that we're supporting in more of a day 0 fashion, and then RHEL Linux 9. So excited about that. Keep the feedback coming on Linux. Tell us which OSs you care about. We know it's a fragmented space, but we're really trying to listen to our customers to make sure we're supporting the ones that matter. Okay, Apple. So this is another exciting update. This goes back to that middle section where we talked about getting into mobility. So a lot here, and I'll start with the high level. So iOS and iPad. So this is a journey that we started. We've been working on it for a while. In December last year, we released the first version of iOS for COD and BYOD devices. Notably, we've got user enrollment, right? So that's on the left. And then we have what we call as device enrollment or device self-enrollment available today. So this covers the fundamental use case of securing your device, right? You can make sure that you can run your management profiles and have the device listed in your JumpCloud console. So great first step, the ability to do basic configurations. So what we're really focusing on here in Q1, Q2 is the ability to make it even easier to onboard those devices. So notably, automated device enrollment, ADE, is something we're working on. This gives you the ability to register a COD or corporate-owned device with Apple Business Manager and JumpCloud, so that when the user unboxes their device, they would go straight to management. Also, we are going to be working on VPP, so a little more detail on that to follow. So the key thing to know about remote management, this is going to be, the basics that you need to set it up. So there's probably 14 or 15 different options in the setup assistant. You'll be able to configure those to make the enrollment flow as thorough or as light as you want for the user on the device. You'll also, of course, be able to require them to authenticate, critical, so that you can make sure the device is secure. And then, of course, as you know from macOS today, we're giving you the ability to put those devices, once they're enrolled, in device groups. And one of the things to note, today we only let you choose a single device group. We're actually working on an enhancement to allow you to choose multiple, which is a subtle but important enhancement to workflow. So pretty excited about this first step here. So VPP, this is, of course, a critical step. Users can go to stores, of course, and download apps, but it's a lot easier if you can automatically push the apps. So we are adding support, just like macOS, for VPP. These are going to be device level assignments. So the nice thing here is that you can push those down silently. You don't need to have the user input like a managed Apple ID or anything like that. So this is all from our MDM service straight to the device. So users are going to come out, if you can imagine this use case, they unbox their device, they authenticate after a short setup flow, and they're off to the races. All their apps that they care about, whether it's Slack or whatever, are on the device. So really exciting. we are looking forward to feedback. So this is one where we really want you to test the waters, let us know how it's going, and we'll continue to improve it as it becomes a real core aspect of what we're doing. I mentioned this at the top of the section, and I will just plug it again. We are also, of course, working on Android. That's a little bit longer tail. I'm sure that question may come up, but I just want to reiterate that that's on our radar as well. Okay, Sundar, sir, I'm turning it over to you.
All right. So as we make our journey up the West Coast.
Thank you, Greg. Thank you, Chase. So let's get started. Can you all see my screen?
Yes, sir.
Perfect. Okay. So welcome to sunny Seattle, everyone. Glasses always half full. It's not sunny outside, but I'd like to think it's sunny. Let's get started. So I'm Sundar Jayashekar. I lead the product management efforts for data services. So all data products and services comes under the product ownership of my team. We're incredibly excited to be talking to you all. FY22 is going to be an incredible year for all of us, like you've heard from all the leads. So a little bit, a brief intro about myself. I've been here, I think Greg and myself literally started on the same day, sometime in September. It's not been terribly long, but it's been an exciting 4 months, at least for me. So prior to this, I was at Salesforce doing security and security detection and response. Prior to that, spent quite a few years at Amazon Web Services and Microsoft earlier to that. So I've been around the block a little bit. Incredibly excited to be part of JumpCloud. I think it's a great space. And before I get started, thanks to everyone who've trusted us, who've given us the opportunity to serve you all. We are incredibly excited about FY22. So if I can move slides here. So let's start with the Q1 themes for data services. It broadly falls into three categories. I'll start with the rightmost one, the platform resiliency, which Scott talked about early on, Operation Mercury Viper. We've taken this incredibly seriously. The platform stability, scalability, and performance is incredibly important, especially now than ever before when we're growing at the rate at which we are. So we are dedicating quite a bit of resources to get that story right. We're standing up a brand, in terms of data services, we're standing up a brand new reporting platform just so that we can serve more reports to all of you in a timely fashion and in a scalable fashion. The other big thing that we're looking to launch this year is asset inventory service. This is us continuing our journey on the visibility side of things. At the latter part of last year, we did an annual survey like JumpCloud does every year, and we heard it loud and clear. About 70% of you surveyed in that survey, and I think there were about 850 or 900 complete surveys that came in. 70% of you really were excited about this asset service. I'm calling it asset inventory service for now. It's still not branded. We're still coming up with a name, but let's go with asset inventory service for the rest of the presentation. The theme in the middle is about reporting. When we look at the customer requests coming in, by far the largest request is about reporting. The underlying theme has been, hey, you guys are sitting on a goldmine of data, which we agree. Can you expose the data to us in the form of reports? So throughout FY22, you will see the theme of reporting coming in. In Q1, we're tackling some of the, I'll call them basic reports, just because customers have asked for it for quite a while now, and we want to put that into your hands, is users to resources reporting. Give me a snapshot in time of all the users and what devices they have access to, so on and so forth. So we go to, throughout FY22, we're going to be exposing reports in two different silos. One is scanned reports that's really available to everybody, and customizable reports to answer some of the deeper questions that you may not get from the canned reports. So that's the theme for Q1. Before we go any further, since this is Q1, the first quarter of FY22, I want to give a sneak peek into our strategy, our data strategy for FY22. I won't spend too much time on this, but the takeaway for you all is we're thinking about all of these different silos. The first takeaway here is data services, data products sits across all the different products and services within the JumpCloud ecosystem. You take identity, access, device systems. We are a layer that sits underneath all of these services, and we collect telemetry and data for all of these services. It's our primary goal within the team to provide you maximum visibility and maximum value from this data, right? If there's one thing that we can put on the t-shirt for data service, that is it, provide more value through data. And the way we're thinking about this falls into 4 different buckets. There might be others, but these are the 4 I could think of that broadly captures everything we want to do in FY22. Reporting and querying, which we talked about earlier. Asset governance, which I'm going to be diving into much more detail in the coming slides. Events and insights is something that we are incredibly excited to do in FY22. It's not just enough for us to give you the raw data, but we have to provide you events and, more importantly, an aggregation layer above events for insights. Help us figure out what's going right, what's going wrong. Help us figure out the compliance use cases, help us figure out the security use cases. So that's where insights and events come into the picture. Last but not the least, once we have something interesting happening, we want to give you the ability to configure alerts and notification, and down the road remediation as well. So this is how we're thinking about data services in general for the entire year. So let's deep dive into asset inventory service. Again, this has not been branded. That's what I'm going to call it in the presentation today. 70% of you said, yes, we want to use asset inventory service, primarily because I don't have a single source of truth for all my IT assets within the company today. It's a terrible thing not to have. You cannot protect what you don't know exists, right? That's the primary purpose of the service, is to let you manage all. First of all, let you have the visibility of all assets within your company. And assets mean different for us than what it means for most people. We're including everything under assets: software, hardware, servers, cloud infrastructure. We consider all of that assets. For the early access in Q1, we're going to expose asset inventory service for devices only. And then we'll add software and we'll add everything else. For example, we'll be adding servers that manage through LDAP. We'll add all the networks, your wireless networks that we can glean from Radius. And down the road, we have this utopic vision of even exposing down to the level of the plugins in your browser or software is installed on your laptops and servers, and also even manage certificates as assets. Again, that's far-fetched, maybe 2 years down the road, but we'll crawl, walk, and run on that effort. So one thing that we heard loud and clear when we did customer conversations for the services, you want to be able to track additional asset attributes. You want to be able to figure out who the vendor is, what's the purchase date, what is the asset tag, warranty expiration. Today, we've heard that many of you manage this on spreadsheets, and some of you manage it on third-party tools. It is our aim through this service to let you do all of these things within the same ecosystem so that you don't have to use another vendor. So moving on, how do we enter assets? And I have screenshots to show you on this. So initially, we will allow you to upload the device list that you have. Like I said, the early access for the service is going to be for devices only, and then we'll add the other assets in time. We'll also allow you to enter them manually. The ultimate goal, however, for this service, fast forward 12 months or 18 months, is to auto-discover as much as possible so that you don't have to do anything manually. We will be auto-discovering it through devices and agents that Greg's team manages today that you have. We'll also be auto-discovering services that show up through LDAP and Radius and everything else. So auto-discovery will be the name of the game, but give us some time to get there. And ultimately, the goal here is to be able to do asset lifecycle management. Here is, these are all high fidelity and some of them are low fidelity mockups. Expect these to these to change, but these are just mock-ups for us to kind of code this up internally. So here's a view of the asset inventory list. So what's different from this, from the device list today, is all the additional attributes. Here we'll show you both managed and unmanaged devices today. They may have an agent on it, they may not have an agent on it. Our goal is to show all devices in this list. And then you have, we talked about all the additional attributes. We're going to show all the additional attributes here as well. And an interesting one for me is the status of the device. Has the device been ordered? Has it been assigned to a user? Has it been purchased? Is it under repair? What is the so on and so forth. So one of the pain points that we've heard is, let's say you have 10 employees starting next month. With everybody working from home, IT admins don't have a handle on what's in the inventory today. A simple use case like that can be solved here by entering the device at the time of the purchase. We'll give you fields to enter the purchase order, be able to track the shipment, so on and so forth. Very small pain points, but when you add them all up, it gives you the ability to manage everything within the JumpCloud ecosystem. Furthermore, on the visibility side, we'll help you report, export data, as well as filter on some of these or all of these additional attributes. You'll be able to filter on the status, category, subcategory, so on and so forth. Adding a new device, I'm not going to spend too much time here. This will reside in the device environment, device ecosystem today, and we have added the additional attributes that you can enter and track. For those of you who have, like I said, if you have a spreadsheet that you're managing, let's say you have 120, 200, 800 different devices on that. We will make it easy for you to upload those devices into our system so that you don't have to enter everything. We will have features where we'll dedupe them between what already exists through auto discovery and what you might upload from the spreadsheet. So all of those devices deduping functionalities will exist so that you don't have to worry about duplicates. Again, as you're adding the device, one of the key requirements, capabilities that customers have asked for is, I want to make sure that I understand which device is assigned and which ones are not. A critical requirement, especially for compliance. We will provide those capabilities as well. And if you're searching for, if it's a new employee and you're searching for the user in the system and they don't exist, we will give you a short link, a quick link for you to add the new user then and there as well. Okay, so that completes the asset inventory service. So let's talk about a couple of other things coming in Q1. This is something, if you attended the Q4 webinar, what we talked about then is revamping the current homepage on the JumpCloud portal. We are continuing that work. Unfortunately, in Q4, we were not able to deliver on what we said we would. There are a couple of reasons for that. We repurposed a lot of the resources for Operation Mercury Viper. Obviously, we had to give, and this is one of the projects that we had to deprioritize, but it's coming in Q1. We will be releasing a lot of these new fancy widgets in Q1 coming next month, and expect in Q1 to have a lot of these exciting widgets with a lot of customizability. We're allowing each IT admin have their own dashboard. Think of these new widgets as something that you will walk into with your morning cup of coffee to figure out, what is the biggest fire I'm fighting today? What are the user lockouts? What are the expiry of passwords, and so on and so forth? Where possible, in this case, we're looking at user lockouts. We'll give you remediation capabilities right within that context of that screen without having to go somewhere else. In this case, if you have 7 user lockouts, you can click them all and you can unlock them, recycle the password, or suspend their accounts, if you will. Again, we will continue on the reporting journey as well. Users to resource to report is coming this quarter. In fact, we will be giving early access to this in the next 1 to 2 weeks and going GA at the end of Q1. Okay, so moving on to managed service providers. All the stuff that's coming in the multi-tenant portal. In Q1, our focus here is on providing billing visibility. There are a couple of things we're doing here. One is enhancements that allow you to get billing information from the MTP portal, something that a lot of you have asked for a while now. So ultimately, we are happy that we will be delivering those to you in Q1. Also, billing details by tenant and downloadable invoices. The next theme here is billing integration with third-party providers that are popular with. Sorry about that. So ConnectWise integration is something that all of you have asked for. It's coming in Q1. What we expect to do here is billing terms to ConnectWise is one feature. MSPs who are customers of ConnectWise can see updated cost and usage information on the portal, on the ConnectWise agreements for their tenants. This will actually enable MSPs to be aware of their daily changes to high water mark. That really helps with accurate billing. And we are happy to say that we are EAing this week, I believe. So something to get excited about there for the MSP folks. That's it from me for data services and MSP. I think I'll turn it over to Chase. Take us through the question and Q&A session.
Awesome, wonderful. Thank you so much, everyone. As we went through, as I mentioned, there was a lot to be excited about coming our way. So I'm going to invite all of our speakers back on, and we'll kind of move into questions and feedback. As you notice, there's probably about 5 minutes left in kind of top of the hour, so we want to be respectful of that. Good news is this is being recorded and we can send it out so you can miss all that discussion. And if you're able to stay on with us, we will also stay on for another 10-15 minutes or so, making sure we can get through as many questions as we can. If we cannot, we will also follow up individually and make sure that they are covered there as well. And so the good news is, thank you everyone for sending questions in along. It also makes my job a little bit easier in terms of filtering, so we can start from the top and kind of go from there. So actually kind of the first question, Eric, I'll pass it over to you. Any plans for PAM and JumpCloud? What does that look like for us?
For PAM, so if the question is specifically about the classic way of managing privileged access management, then becoming a PAM vendor, probably not. However, there are aspects of PAM that we will be, we definitely will be looking into coming, along the year. And I think it's probably better to expand on that in Q2 and Q3.
Okay, perfect. All right, and then some of the questions around kind of HRIS and making sure that, and so when those options are integrated into JumpCloud, making sure that will there be logging available for admins, right? So as those syncs are happening, maybe walk us through a little bit what may be happening within Directory Insights.
Specifically about Directory Insights. So let Sundar take the second part of that. I will let you know that we are starting to roll out as we go. You'll see 3 and 4 and 5 coming out, and potentially much more in the coming months. HRIS integrations, everyone will be slightly different. Sundar, do you want to take the Insights aspect?
Yeah, Chase, sorry, you'll have to repeat the data service part of the question.
Oh, just making sure that when we are logging those events, that it's also being presented through Directory Insights.
Yeah, that's a good question. So there are a lot of, there's one big thing that I didn't mention that we're working on for the backend services is we're unifying the data schema for all events. We're making it easy for all internal services to publish events that will be aggregated and presented through data services. So one of the things that it is not as easy, or it was not as easy to present events earlier. We're making that easy for everyone. So expect all of that to have good effect on having all events displayed, right? There are some events gaps today. We've identified them and we will be tackling them ASAP. If there are any specific events that people care about that's not there today, I would love to know that list.
And I think that also we will, as we roll out HRIS integrations, we will learn which events matter and which do we need to surface as part of data insights. Changes in user states, right? New users being onboarded, imported from a different directory. So all of those will definitely be surfaced as well.
Yeah, and absolutely. And we are mandating the production and display of events before we launch any service, right? That's critical for people to know that such an event has happened, not just releasing the services. That's something that we internally as all leads, we've agreed on to do. So that should help everyone.
Perfect. Okay, moving on, kind of next question, coming around with push MFA for LDAP and kind of future forward, will TOT functionality be a part of that? And if so, kind of will it be coming before, right after, simultaneously, or kind of describe a little bit more what that might look like?
Yes, that's a really good question. We're actually having that same debate ourselves. Initially, the plan is to release push for LDAP. TOTP might be added into it based on timeline. If not on the initial release, then in further on release, we definitely will support TOTP as well.
Perfect. All right, so kind of moving into the devices side of the house. So a couple questions around MDM, right? And so MDM for Windows, Linux, having an MDM experience similar, kind of like Intune. Greg, if you wanted to expand on that.
Yeah, no, that is a good question. So we're looking at that. Those of you who asked that question know that today, we have more of a sort of a commands-based approach via the agent on Windows, especially. We may go down the path of more formal MDM channel. We haven't decided. We're looking at the pros and cons. I think the feedback we probably love from the community is, where do you see gaps that you would feel more comfortable if you had MDM as the solution as opposed to not. So the jury's still out, but we're definitely looking at that. We're clearly, I know this wasn't the question that was asked, but as an example, we're looking at improving the commands infrastructure and making it more robust regardless. So, it's definitely something that's top of mind.
Okay, perfect. All right, and then so right behind that, I'm doing my best to group a few of the questions that are coming in. So thank you everyone for adding that in. Around patch management, and so kind of expanding there. Is it just the OSs? Kind of when we'll be looking at third party, and then as well as will that support server OSs as well?
Yeah, so good questions. Expect the initial release to just be OSs. In fast follow, so just we'll say H1, we want to be doing patch for apps as well. So we're looking at third parties. So that'll definitely be part of the solution. Ultimately, server will be part of the solution as well. So as I said at the top of that section, everything that we support, we're going to try to include in the patch and compliance story. So it'll just be a journey through the course of 2022.
Okay. All right. And so I would say a couple requests, notifications, other things around the ability to change notification language. So internationalization and localization for a lot of those pages are coming through. I don't think that there's kind of a question behind that, but I think just more a kind of continued effort of when that will be available, kind of as we continue to think about that, as we continue to expand.
Yeah, maybe I'll just make a comment on our overall internationalization strategy. So, we are looking across the solution stack to make sure that everything is flexible. So, everything in the product needs to be internationalized, not just in devices. So, language shouldn't matter. In terms of actual localization support, so that's more of something we're evaluating. You should expect to see us localize end user facing pieces of maybe the agent experience over time, protect or things that are going to be used in different locales for sure. We may never choose to localize the admin console. That might be a separate decision. And then notifications, of course, if they need to be multilingual, that's something that we would have to, work to do. In the example of patch, that's requires you to have almost like a CMS on the admin side. So we would have to sort that out over time. But just know that there's a lot of awareness around internationalization. For that matter, there's going to be focus on different types of compliance and accessibility as we go forward, and you'll hear more about that in the future.
Okay. And next question is, will there ever be kind of an archived user status coming for our user accounts? So say, for example, if they've been suspended for a long period of time, so not quite deleted, but a little bit more in the middle.
So pause and resume. So Eric, I think that's a question for you.
Yeah, I'm kind of thinking through this and trying to see how. So currently, that's not on the plan. It's actually a really good point and something I'm going to discuss with the team and see what we can do.
Yeah, I can take that a little bit. So we've seen this request come in from a couple of customers, going back in history to figure out suspended users, especially in countries where, even if you add the first and last name, it ends up being non-unique. So instead of adding numbers towards the end, they want to just go and dedupe that, the username, host name kind of a thing. So we are addressing a few things with respect to historical data and data retention, right? If you see some of the data products today, we have a 90-day retention. We'd like to increase it to 12 months. So it's in the works, but I have nothing to announce today. But definitely something we're thinking about.
Okay, perfect. We do have one more question. Let's see, yes, integrating into more HR systems are covered a little bit earlier. Let's see if I can find. Here we go. Are there plans to have the asset inventory system kind of pull device information from Apple DEP, dep enrollment, as part of that kind of asset inventory?
I don't know the specific Apple integration point, but what I can tell is the asset inventory service, the aim for us is to do auto discovery. That's going to be the name of the game. That's the ultimate mantra of the service. I'm going to be dipping to everything. Greg is going to provide me from devices, and Eric is going to provide me into a directory and make it as easy as possible to populate the single source of truth for all assets, right? Mm-hmm. Maybe Greg has more details on the app.
I can give a little more color there. So, the strategy on asset inventory, to Sundar's point, is to do discovery. So we recognize there's a lot of data sources. So you can hit an API, for instance, at Dell, to find out for your account what the date of purchase and the serial number and all of that is, right? So we know there's existing vendor APIs. We know that you're probably getting all of your apps and device info out of ABM, and we have that integration. We'll definitely include that in Asset Inventory Manager. We recognize that not everybody wants to use a spreadsheet. They would just assume hit a go button, and then we would pull in the apps and devices for Mac OS and iOS for that matter. But we'll look to stage it. Some things are going to be easy. Some things will take more work. Aggregating windows is probably the bigger issue, and we want to make sure that we of course roll it all out together so you have a complete list. There's nothing worse than having you hit a magic go button and having it be 30% complete. So I'll pause there. Definitely something that Sundar and I are going to be working more closely on how to deliver the most value for our customers.
Okay, yeah, the one other thing I wanted to add with asset service, just because it's been such a popular ask through the survey. Look, we're not competing with any asset management systems out there, right? We're only putting the service out there because customers have asked for it. And we're going to put out only those requirements that will help them with whatever they're trying to do, right? We're not competing. That's not the way we build systems here. We just listen to the customers and build what they want. And it's not going to solve everything for everyone. Like there will still be people who will use the companies that are built just to do this one thing, asset inventory. So we can compete. But we will provide everything so that you can aggregate the vendors, have a single ecosystem to do everything that you want to do. That's the main goal here.
Okay, perfect. So we'll have one more question because I know we are over time. I will say that there has been a bulk of questions or just basically requests saying we ultimately want to get to a zero-touch JumpCloud lifestyle, if you will, where every device is kind of zero-touch, kind of going through those pieces. Last question we have is just in terms of Azure AD migration. How are we helping folks kind of think about identities there coming over here?
Yeah, so we do have abilities today to sync users from Azure AD. I think we need to take a deeper look into more complex environments. So assuming, I should say not assuming a single source of truth that remains constant throughout time, but an evolving need. And that same question applies to many more directories. I've seen many deployments where there are 3 or 4 or 5 different directories for different types of users, maybe internal users versus external contractors and suppliers versus customers. And we need to be able to bring in users, export users, give that same level of admin experience across all user syncs. So you'll be seeing a whole lot of activity around that.
Perfect. Thank you. All right. Well, in that, we will now wrap our Q1 roadmap webinar. Thank you, everyone, for all the amazing questions that have come through. There's still some continued follow-up that we will do there. And thank you again to all of our speakers for joining us and showcasing what we have coming your way. Have a great rest of your day, and we will talk to you soon.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Please subscribe and check out more content from us.